Welcome back to Investing Talk Podcast.
Great to be here.
You asked us to sift through the most recent filings, analyst reports, and market sentiment data on Palantir Technologies, the AI giant that seems to be everywhere in defense and commercial news.
Absolutely. It's definitely a hot topic.
So our mission today is pretty focused. Is Palantir Technologies a good time to buy right now?
That's the big question, isn't it?
To give you the best answer we can, we've synthesized a whole stack of source material. We're talking their 2024 10K, the Q1 2025 10Q, analyst takes, market chatter, basically everything up to mid-October 2025.
Yeah, we're trying to blend the fundamentals, the numbers, with what the market's actually doing, the technical side.
Exactly. Now, before we dive in, if this kind of analysis helps you out, please do hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps us know what you find useful.
And definitely leave a comment below if there's a specific company you want us to tackle next. We read those.
We do. All right, let's get into Palantir. I mean, the momentum around this company has been incredible, right? Especially given its role in the whole AI space.
It really has. High visibility, lots of buzz.
But does the stock's performance really hold up when you look under the hood? Let's start with the basics, the core financial health.
Okay, so what's fascinating here isn't just that they're growing, but the quality of it. We're looking at trailing 12-month TTM revenue that just hit $3.44 billion.
$3.44 billion. That's substantial.
It is. And that's a 28.8% jump year over year. That really outpaces what you'd typically expect from, well, a software company of this size. Significantly so.
And the profitability side has really shifted too, hasn't it? It feels like they've moved from just high-growth speculation to, well, a potentially sustainable model.
That's a key point. TTM net income is now $763 million. So net margins are comfortably over 20%.
That's 20%. That's a big psychological level, I think.
Yep. It absolutely is. The market needed to see that. And the Q1 2025 filing showed that margin expansion is continuing. It seems to be driven by operational leverage.
Okay, explain that a bit. Operational leverage.
Basically, they can roll out their AI platform, their AIP, to new clients without needing a proportional increase in their own costs, like hiring tons more people or huge fixed expenses. So more of each new revenue dollar just drops to the bottom line.
Got it. So looking ahead, the consensus for FY 2025 earnings is around $625 million. Seems strong. But given that AIP adoption pace and the way their U.S. commercial revenue has been surging, is $625 million maybe a bit conservative?
That's exactly the question analysts are grappling with. They're probably being a bit cautious, maybe worried about contract timing or something. But yeah, those estimates could definitely see upward revisions if Q3 execution comes in strong.
And how does the balance sheet look in all this?
Very solid. That's another part of the story. Minimal long-term debt, which is unusual compared to peers. Total assets way above liabilities. And critically, they're throwing off significant free cash flow. We saw strong numbers in both Q4 24 and Q1 25.
And that cash flow, what does it mean practically for investors?
Financial flexibility, big time. That cash supports their, pretty expensive R&D efforts. Plus, management has hinted it could fund stock buybacks, which helps shareholders directly.
Or acquisitions, maybe?
Or acquisitions, exactly. They could potentially snap up smaller niche AI companies to speed things up. It gives them real leverage in the market.
Okay, so a strong foundation is there financially. But tech is hyper-competitive. Money isn't enough if you don't have differentiation. What stops rivals just copying them? What's the actual moat?
Right. Palantir is still, hands down, the leader in government data analytics. That's their bedrock, built over years.
Decades, really?
Yeah, decades. But the growth now is coming from pushing into commercial AI with that AIP platform. So the moat is kind of two things. The proprietary software itself, which is NPLEX and mission critical, and those really sticky government contracts.
And we saw huge validation of that stickiness recently, didn't we? That massive Pentagon deal.
Oh, yeah. The $10 billion 10-year Pentagon contract awarded back in July 2025, that wasn't just a big number. It basically confirmed the U.S. military sees their platform as, well, pretty irreplaceable infrastructure.
Irreplaceable is a strong word.
It is, but think about the stickiness. It's not just that the software is hard to replicate. The cost and disruption of integrating something like Palantir, training everyone, basing critical decisions on it, ripping it out to switch to a competitor, that integration cost often dwarfs the original license cost. They embed themselves operationally.
But that doesn't relying on these huge long-term government deals bring its own risks, like customer concentration.
Yeah.
Revenue can get lumpy, right?
It's a definite tension, yeah. The concentration risk is real. But winning massive deals like the Pentagon one validates their unique ability to deploy this complex AI stuff at scale. That leads to strong net revenue retention. These clients just can't afford for it to fail.
And they are diversifying more into commercial now, too.
Exactly. Their innovation lets them serve both public and private sectors, often with the same core tech, which is accelerating that commercial diversification. It should soften the government reliance over time.
Okay, foundations look solid. Mode seems real. Let's shift gears to the market. How is the market actually pricing all this? Because fundamentals are one thing, market conviction is another. What are the technicals telling us?
Well, the charts have been pretty loud. The stock has rallied, an incredible 133% year to date, just blown past most other big tech names in 2025.
133%. Wow. And looking more recently, say the last 3 months.
It's been in a pretty wide channel, roughly $135 up to $190. We're seeing decent technical support down near that $150, $160 zone.
And resistance is up near $180, $190.
Yeah, it's been testing that upper boundary. Technically, the immediate picture still looks bullish. It's consistently staying above its 50-day and 200-day moving averages, classic sign of health.
What about momentum indicators?
Yeah.
RSI.
RSI is sitting in a comfortable sort of neutral to bullish range, like 55 to 65. If things hold up, our projection for the next 3 months puts the trading range somewhere between, say, $155 and $200.
Okay, but I have to bring up the beta. It's 2.6 here.
Right.
That signals high volatility, right?
Right.
Moves way more than the market overall. How do you square that with a bullish view?
You absolutely have to acknowledge that high beta. It means it's going to be a wild ride. You need the stomach for it. But interestingly, the sources pointed out that recent trading looks like what technicians call orderly accumulation.
Orderly accumulation, meaning?
Meaning the buying seems systematic, sustained. Like institutions are methodically building positions, not just a crazy retail frenzy driving chaotic spikes. That's actually a healthier sign, despite the volatility.
Okay, that brings us to sentiment. The aha moment, perhaps. We know institutions seem to be buying. What about insiders and the retail crowd?
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting. There seems to be an alignment. Q3 2025 Form 4 filings actually showed net insider buying, several senior execs putting their own cash in after earnings.
That's a powerful signal, not just options, but actual cash buys.
Exactly, very bullish sign. And at the same time, you have this huge retail interest that just won't quit. Positive sentiment is still high on forums. Message volume was reportedly way up, like 135% in September alone. That enthusiasm creates a real tailwind.
Okay, powerful combination. So looking ahead, next few months, what are the key catalysts that could push this stock higher? And importantly, what are the big risks that could knock it off course?
Right, near-term catalysts. The most immediate is earnings. Q3 2025 results are expected November 3rd. The market will want to see continued sequential growth.
Yeah, and more contracts.
Definitely. High expectations for more federal contract wins, maybe smaller task orders building on that big Pentagon deal momentum.
And then there's the whole index game.
Ah, yes, index politics. The December 20th S&P and Nasdaq rebalancing, that can always spark volatility. And it ties into some of the market chatter.
The rumors.
Yeah, these are unconfirmed, remember, but persistent rumors about another huge multi-billion-dollar contract with a different U.S. defense agency.
Okay, that would be big. And the S&P 500 inclusion talk seems constant.
It really does. With the market cap now over $400 billion, they definitely meet the size criteria. Speculation is rampant.
Why is inclusion such a big deal?
Because it triggers forced buying. All the massive index funds have to buy the stock, regardless of valuation, just to track the index. It creates huge guaranteed demand.
Any other chatter floating around?
There's also some buzz, again speculative, about potential partnerships in healthcare analytics. Names like United Health subsidiaries get mentioned. It all feeds the bullish story, even if it's just talk for now.
Okay, lots of potential upside fuel. But we have to balance this. Given the huge run-up, what are the serious risks listeners need to keep front of mind?
Absolutely critical for balance. Risk number one is just plain valuation. The price to earnings, the forward PE, they're sky high. That means there's massive execution risk baked in.
Meaning if growth slows even a tiny bit.
Exactly. If they stumble, even if they report good growth, but not phenomenal growth that meets those high expectations, the stock could get hammered by multiple contraction. People suddenly aren't willing to pay as much per dollar of earnings.
Okay, valuation risk. What else?
Second, back to what you mentioned earlier, customer concentration. Relying on those huge government deals means revenue can be lumpy. It makes quarter-to-quarter results inherently uneven and harder to predict.
And the cost of talent. Stock-based compensation.
That's the third one. Stock-based comp, or SBC, is still pretty high compared to software peers. It is trending down, which is good, but it still eats into reported profits and dilutes existing shareholders over time, something investors really need to watch.
So pulling it all together, the strong financials, the clear mode, the technical momentum, but also these risks. What's the final verdict, the takeaway?
When you synthesize all of it, the overall investment thesis still comes out strongly bullish. We'd give it a quantitative rating of, say, 8.5 out of 10.
8.5.
Okay, yeah. The rationale is that sustained, high-quality growth from AIP in both government and commercial, backed by strong cash flow and a healthy balance sheet. The technicals are supportive, showing accumulation, and you have multiple potential catalysts coming up.
So it seems attractive for both maybe shorter-term trades on news and longer-term holds,
Right.
trying to capture that whole AI wave, even with the high price tag.
That seems to be the consensus, yes. Despite the premium valuation, it looks attractive on both fronts right now.
Okay.
But here's the final thought we want to leave you mulling over. Given that sky-high valuation, we saw a price-to-sales multiple around 134x reported in October, and all this persistent speculation about S&P 500 inclusion. How much of today's price is already assuming perfect execution of their growth plan? Versus how much is just anticipating that massive guaranteed buying pressure from index funds if S&P inclusion actually happens? Is the market pricing in execution, or is it pricing in forced buying?
That's a really critical distinction. Execution versus anticipation. Lots to think about there. Thank you for walking us through all that detail.
My pleasure.
And thank you, our listener, for tuning in. We definitely encourage you to keep digging into these factors yourself. We'll catch you on the next analysis.